Well, I guess technically it's Tuesday with Broken Sunshine. That's Vance Joy. We're 8:35. Mike Barrett joining us. We told you from Barrett Insurance Agency.
Ba to you as well.
You miss this, don't you? Oh, Mike and I go way back here. And many of you know him too, because Mike has been part of the community your entire life, right?
Yeah, mostly. Not my entire life, but a good chunk of it. Yeah.
Okay.
I've been around.
Okay, I'd say that again on the radio.
I won't say that again ever.
All right, so what we do, folks, we get together and we
Wait
try
for
to
my
make
phone to blow up here.
try to make sense of the world of insurance. And there's so much out there to insure so that you're covered in the event of a catastrophe. I can't remember, Mike, 3, 4, 5 months ago, it seems like, you enlightened us here and our listeners out there about insurance coverage limits. And I think we came out of that. Maybe a good time to hit that again.
Sure.
With the understanding that sometimes not enough insurance is just as bad as not having insurance at all.
You're right. Exactly. And it works both ways. Having not enough insurance can impact you greatly if you are found liable for injury to others. But let's go to an auto policy, all right? So not only is that going to protect you if you are found liable for injury to others or property damage to others, but what happens when somebody with not enough or no insurance whatsoever, which we just mentioned could be about the same thing in many cases if your limits are low enough, what happens to you if you are hit and injured by somebody else? So it's what's prompting this is that you need to have a fairly good understanding. You don't have to have a working knowledge that goes forever and a day, but a good understanding that different liability limits exist. All right. And we're going to use an automobile policy as an example. All right. So let's just throw it out there and muddy up the waters quick. All right. There's two types of liability coverage. Okay. One is called combined single limit coverage.
Okay. Greek to us.
All
Help
right.
us out here.
The other one is called split limit coverage. What's the more common one? Typically, we see more of what we call the split limit coverage. So we'll start with that one and then go back to the other one. So split limit liability. What that is you're going to see three specific limits that apply to liability coverage for you. So the first limit will be the limit of liability that'll pay your policy will pay per person that you injure. The next limit would be the most your policy would pay for the total accident. Now, so we're going to stop with those two for a second.
Okay, total accident. Now, is that a combination of the above and property, or is it just the property?
The above and it's just bodily injury liability at that point. So it's the most the bodily injury is going to be paid out for the accident. So let's say, for example, you have state of Vermont minimum, which is $25,000 bodily injury per person, $50,000 bodily injury per accident. So you hit a car full of people, caused devastating injury. What's the most it's going to pay out? $50,000.
So if there's three people in it, basically only two have got coverage, or it's divided amongst the three.
It's divided amongst the three, and then who's on the hook for the rest of it?
You, if it's more than that. I remember this in our
Yes. And that's a key thing that people don't think about is they go, well, I have insurance. I'm all set. I'm good. Not necessarily, because if this goes to a next level and now you're in a court of law and there's a judgment or something that's decided that, you are the absolute reason for this, you caused this accident, great, your auto policy paid the $25,000 per person, the total $50,000 per accident, but there's still a lot more to be paid. You have a house, you have a bank account, you have a retirement account, you have liquid assets, you have hard assets. We're going to do a judgment, a lien, you sell your house, we're getting money out of you. I mean, there's so many open-ended things that when you start thinking about it in that way, is pretty scary. And typically in the state of Vermont minimum, 2550 is the first part, 10 would be the last part, and 10,000 would be the property damage liability. So the most your policy would pay out for damage you caused to other property. That could be another vehicle. It could also be a guardrail, a telephone pole, a house, you name it. If it's property that you've damaged and it's your fault, that's what's going to cover you.
Now, $10,000 we've discussed in the past doesn't cover diddly squat out there.
It almost doesn't cover motorcycles.
Well, right.
In many cases.
That's just it. We talked about it. I mean, the average quad cab pickup truck out there is around $40,000. Yeah. And if you cause that much injury to two people in that vehicle, you've caused more than $10,000 worth of damage, most likely.
Exactly. So that's what the split limit coverage is. Combined single limit says, look, here is your total limit. Bodily injury per person, per accident, property damage, whatever the case may be. Here's a limit, and this is what's going to be just the most paid out. So it doesn't have those sub-limits that we would consider the split limit coverage to be. So typically the lowest I see is $100,000. That's too low. You can go $300,000 up to $500,000. Some companies even offer $1 million. Now, why are these so important? Well, in many cases, when you have that type of liability, whether it be the split limit or the combined single limit, that same liability limit is applied. Although in Vermont, you have the ability to reject it and go to the lower state minimum. But the liability you have will be the liability you have for uninsured motorist protection, meaning somebody hits you with not enough or no insurance. Well, that's the protection you are going to have to keep you from having issues, hopefully.
So would it be common sense then to have that higher?
Yeah. And that's the thing is that, people don't necessarily think about the liability. And the same can be said for a homeowner policy or even for a business owner. If you have limits that are $300,000 and you're a business owner, you probably have limits that are too low. We typically think the starting point for a business owner is $1 million. But going back to the auto, as you get older, there's never really a time in your life where I would recommend minimum limits. But maybe you have 50,000, 100,000, or maybe you have 100,000, 300,000. Now you're acquiring assets. You're becoming a homeowner. You're purchasing this. You're purchasing that. Now you're acquiring more goods. You have more money in your bank account. That's the time to really think about making sure your policy is going to respond appropriately to protect those things for you.
Well, other things, too, to consider. We've talked about this in past. You talked about hard assets. Somebody starts up a coin collection. Somebody has a woodworking hobby on the side or something like that. These are things to consider in your coverage, right?
Exactly. It's just such a... Oh, there's somebody. Hold
Ding,
on.
ding.
No, that's just the town of St. Johnsbury with my Nixon alert for the day. But they're late this morning.
Another road closure.
You should get that before 8. But that is the really the key to think about here, because a lot of people buy auto insurance or any insurance for that matter and have a tendency to set it and forget it. Not a good idea, because here's another angle real quick. I'll hit on this real quick because I know we're going fairly long. Deductibles. You may be young and think that you can't support above a $250 deductible. Maybe you don't want a $500 deductible. Maybe you don't want a $1,000 deductible. And when I speak deductible, I'm thinking comprehensive and collision coverage in an auto policy or your homeowner deductible. You get older, you may be able to absorb more of a loss, or maybe you can look at your history of insurance and go, well, gosh, I've had these types of incidents occur and I've never called in a claim. So why do you have a lower deductible? So while we're talking about the prospect of increasing your insurance costs by going with better liability limits, you can always try to offset it a little bit with higher dedeductibles as an option. Just things to think about.
And packages.
Yeah. Don't forget the packages and the bundling.
The bundling, right.
The bundle. So these are just key, because as you grow, you need to make sure your policies kind of grow with you. It's just really a good thing. And that brings up umbrella policies, which we've talked in the past, which maybe we'll hit on again. I think those are a very underutilized policy form available for both personal folks, personal insurance like home and auto, or farmers, or even business. There's 3 types of umbrellas out there.
Well, and you talked about service too, like power lines running in from, to your property and things like that, and water lines and things of that nature too in the past.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, the service line protection. So there's a lot of factors to consider. So when you have a tendency to set it and forget it, you could be missing out on optimizing your price, optimizing your coverage. And that's why we really like to have you talk with us.
So every time somebody acquires something, has something obviously improved in their life, they take a better job, they win the lottery, gosh forbid, but anything. You get the picture, right?
Right. The more you have, the more you stand to lose, the more you really should be putting a frontline protection in, which is what insurance is for.
Have the conversation.
Absolutely.
That's what we do.
Yes, sir.
Tell them how.
I don't know. Oh, wait, hold on. Give us a call, 748-5224. Visit our website, thebarrettagency.com. We're on Google, Facebook, and YouTube as Barrett Insurance Agency.
Mike, thank you very much.
Have a wonderful day.
I had to adjust my headphones again.
Why?
I learned something.
What?
I learned something.
Well, now I'm curious.
You can listen to it in the audio here. All right, folks, we're going to move through the morning. We'll see you next week. Magic in the Morning, we have got music from that.